It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what I'm talking about. I dig it. I like it. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation right here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker KQAM. Simulcasted on KGPT-TV, channel 2610, and all across the entire Mid-America network. KIUL, what's up? KYUL, what's happening? KGYN, down in Guyman, Oklahoma. What's hanging down there? It's great to have you along today on a Wednesday. It's hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we roll today, as we do every single week. The middle of the week, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You've made it halfway. We're here to get you excited, get you pumped up, get you ready for the day, and welcome into it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I have to admit, I am absolutely loving the fact that we have Mike Pompeo in the news now almost on a daily basis. Almost. With the hearings from going from CIA director to Secretary of State, they're going to be voting on him probably relatively soon. He may have some more interviews. I don't know. But now the big news of him going secretly over to North Korea during Easter weekend. And no one knew about it until just now when they released it. The fact that he went over there to meet with Kim Jong-un to have them start setting the stage to discuss the nuclear options between North Korea and the United States. And that's coming, by the way, directly after, according to MSNBC, or CNBC, is reporting of North and South Korea talking to announce a permanent end to the officially declared military conflict between the two countries. And you say that Donald Trump hasn't done anything. And you say that Donald Trump doesn't know how to actually choose the right people to get something done. This is coming from a conflict that's been going on for how many years now? That started, 1950? So that'd be 50, 60, 68 years, almost 70 years? We've had a while that this has been going on. And now it's officially ending. Now, I will say that I hope that this is not under false pretense, because of the fact that there was the election just last year in South Korea of a very progressive, very liberal, very socialist mindseted type of president in South Korea. Probably has something to do with that. And the young generation over there, we talked about this at the time. No one else talked about this, and I still waved the flag over here saying, wait a second, let's be very cautious about the ending of this conflict, because what direction are both nations now going to be going? Are they going to be still going farther to the left with dictatorships and with socialist utopianism, or will they kind of go more towards a free market society? South Korea has been booming under capitalism. South Korea has been booming and growing and doing very well, and now the young generation over there, like we're seeing over here with some fringe young generation individuals, started saying, hey, you know what, let's go a little more socialist. There's no job opportunities here for us. Let's look like North Korea, to where we're actually sitting here with rice, and we're living here in a third world country, and we're just not being able to live and survive. And we just praise the great king and leader and God that is Kim Jong-un. And I am a little concerned that the young generation and the millennials over there in South Korea ended up voting in a progressive socialist that is the new president in South Korea. But hopefully they have enough good enough heads on their shoulders that they can realize that they still have great opportunity in South Korea because of their capitalist system, as opposed to the fascist nation that is North Korea. But the announcement of the ending of the conflict between the two countries, and Mike Pompeo and President Donald Trump right in the midst of it. We get to claim that here in Kansas. We get to say that we did that. We got to be part of that. Mike Pompeo, our very homegrown Kansas boy from the 4th Congressional District, right here in the Wichita area, South Central Kansas, he helped make that happen. President Donald Trump helped make that happen. Now, we're going to try and talk and have a meeting with Kim Jong-un and President Trump. When that happens, regardless what comes out of that meeting, is going to be one of the most productive, is going to be one of the most talked about, is going to be one of the biggest pieces of accomplishments that President Trump will ever have done in his administration. When was the last time that we had a U.S. president sit down with the leader of North Korea in the same room? If this happens, even if not a whole lot comes out of it, it is the beginning of the discussions. It is the beginning of something great. We are moving in the right direction. And I love coming on the air at 6 o'clock in the morning and being able to tell you about great news. I love being able to tell you about positive and exciting news because not only are we seeing great things happen, but we're part of it. We are part of it right here. And I'm really excited about that. Now, I'm sure the media and the progressives are going to be really upset at the fact that it was a secret meeting that Mike Pompeo did. Terrible. I know. How we're ever going to survive with the fact that they did something secret and we didn't get to talk about it and report on it and call Mike Pompeo a fascist or call him a Nazi or call him a racist, and he probably hates Asian people or something, and they probably hate him for whatever he does or says. But you know what? He made it happen. He did a secret meeting with Kim Jong-un, sitting down, our administration sitting down in the same room with Kim Jong-un, saying not only are we going to stop this bickering about you trying to start war with us and all this crap, but we're going to sit down in the same room with both of our presidents, and we're going to discuss what's going to happen between the relations between our countries, and we're going to stop some of these nuclear options that you're wanting to do. And oh, by the way, we still have military influence in South Korea. They're still our allies, and if you want to mess with them, then it's going to be the same result as if you tried to mess with us. And we're sick and tired of all this bickering over here. It's time for us to get on the same board here. We are now growing into more of a globalist nation, or a globalist economy, unfortunately. To some degree it's good, to some degree it's bad. But we have a lot of trade going on all over the world. You're not going to get free goodies anymore. You're not going to get the nice little victimhood status anymore. You're not going to be the little temper tantrum child anymore. You're going to grow up, buck up, and we're going to start making things happen. This is the tough talk that we did not hear from an Obama administration. This is the kind of tough talk that comes from only someone that can be homegrown here in Kansas, in the Mid-America region, a good old boy like Mike Pompeo. This can be the only tough talk from someone like Donald Trump, who's not afraid to bully people around or not afraid to call out the bullies, whether it's Vladimir Putin, whether it's Kim Jong-un, whether it's China. Now, I know this whole scandal about, oh, well, China's got stuff over him, and all they're going to do is just cut off buying off our debts and yada, 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 which is just whatever. It's bullcrap. It's not going to work. But we are an independent nation, and that's the one fault about us being able to sell off our debt to other nations, is it's our fault. And if we're going to chalk it up, then we're going to have to cough it up and just pay off our debts, work on that, and then we can actually be a little independent as a nation. Again, we got some work to do on that, but we have opportunities to make that happen. It's a great day today. It's a great day for America, and I'm really excited about what's happening in North Korea, what's happening in South Korea, what's happening with our relations, and the fact that we get to be part of it right here in the heart of the nation. Welcome in, 316-721-8255. We have a lot to get to today. There's not going to be any guests at the bottom of the hour. I do want to play our interview that we did yesterday with Professor Ben Teitelbaum. He is the professor at University of Colorado in Boulder. Yes, Boulder University, or CU at Boulder, and he came on the show yesterday. We love chatting with him. Great individual. We chatted with him on free speech on campus and radicalism, along with the rise of a conservative movement on the college campus of Boulder. Can you imagine? One of the most progressive liberal campuses in the entire nation, just as much as Berkeley almost. And now we're starting to see a conservative rise of conservative-minded students rising up and saying, we have a voice too, we're allowed to have a voice, and we're going to make sure that voice is heard. And they're starting to do that at CU Boulder, and Professor Ben Teitelbaum is actually allowing that to happen without the safe space type of mentality in his classroom. So we'll play that interview at the bottom of the hour. Really excited for that. I do want to touch on a little bit in the first hour as well, get your thoughts on the Farm Bill, as some of the details are beginning to come out for the Farm Bill. We're going to get some elected officials that are on the ag committees to discuss the Farm Bill in detail, but we're moving in the right direction. Again, great news, good news, big things happening as we're moving in the right. It's still not where we want it to be. Still not anywhere where we need it to be, but it's a step in the right direction. It's going to take baby steps. Conservatives, I implore you, I beg you to let's work on this in baby steps, that we cannot get frustrated in this process, that we cannot throw our hands up in the air, that we cannot throw the white towel in the ring, that we cannot say we give up, throw our arms up in the air and say whatever, it's not where we need it to be. We cannot do that right now. I implore you, hang tight, hang with me, and listen to what we have to say on this. I know it's not nearly, if it were up to us, we would not have SNAP programs. We would not have food stamp programs. We would not have any type of social service or social program in any way, shape, or form involved in an agricultural bill and in a farm bill. If that were the case, if we had a say, if we got to write up the legislation, we would not have it in there in any way, shape, or form, because a farm bill is supposed to be for farmers and for the agricultural community. And for all of you that's actually struggling right now, barely able to afford being able to keep the crop in the ground, barely able to keep your animals fed and taken care of properly before you take them to slaughter, before you do anything, you are the ones that we need to be focusing on something like a farm bill. And we're not right now. 80% of the farm bills are always social programs. The food stamp program, the SNAP program, the WIC program, all of these are under and regulated by the Department of Agriculture and under the Farm Bill, and we don't want to see that. So do we need to get rid of that? Yeah. Is it going to happen anytime soon? No. We got to be realistic about this. So when we come back, we'll talk about some of the details of the Farm Bill, work requirements all across the board on all of these social programs inside and outside of the Farm Bill. And is it a good thing or bad thing? We'll get your take on that. Lots to get to today. It's going to be a fun one. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Hey, 24 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Wednesday. Hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. It's great to have you along with us today. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Your thoughts and calls. I'd love to hear from you. What's happening in your world as we're giving the good news of the day. Number one, first off, the not so good news. We have to thoughts and prayers and condolences to the Bush family for Mrs. Bush passing away, 92 years old. That's the big news there. Not the best news on that front, but we have good news all across the front when it comes to the Farm Bill. Slowly moving. Now, the progressives, they hate it. Oh, they're upset about the Farm Bill. Oh, they don't like it. Oh, no. And you know what I have to say about them, with them being in the minority right now, with them being upset that the economy is doing so well, with them being upset that 500,000 people dropped off of the food stamp program, with them being upset that they're not getting the dependency and regulation that they want.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
Yeah, that's really what we have to say to the progressives. Listen up! We're doing good things right now. We're seeing the ending of the conflict, the official ending of the conflict in North and South Korea, and we're still partners, obviously, with South Korea. We're maybe being able to ease some of the tensions with North Korea, maybe, and it's all due because of Mike Pompeo and President Donald Trump and General Mattis and Nikki Haley and all these other great leaders that we have right now that are moving in the right direction. Look, when the system is so bad, when the system is so bogged down, when the system is so corrupt, we can't walk in and I know that we're kind of one of those, come on, we live in the world of instant messages and social media and text messages, and we have the instant gratification. If we send somebody a message, we want a response within the next 30 seconds. We're ready for that. That's what we anticipate as a human being. That's our mindset nowadays. And when we elect somebody like Donald Trump with, everybody's talked about it over and over and over again. Why'd we elect Donald Trump? Well, we elected Donald Trump because we want somebody not in the system to throw the wrench into the system, to start cleaning up the swamp, to start fixing the issues that we have in the country, and to start doing things that are non-politically minded, because we don't want a politician in office any longer. It's going to take time. It's going to take a process. It's going to take baby steps. FDR had it down pat, and conservatives can always learn something from FDR if it's not the fact that progressive values just suck, but just the fact that it takes time and we have to chip away at the goal that we want to in the long term and not do it instantaneously. So we're working in that direction, and that's why I'm so proud of what's happening right now. Now, when it comes to the Farm Bill, Politico.com, House Republicans unveiled the bill on Thursday and would impose stricter work requirements on millions of low-income Americans receiving food stamps, a bill to enact a small slice of the GOP welfare overhaul. Now, this is coming right after, by the way, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show, but this is coming right after Donald Trump said that for Medicare and for Medicaid, that we're going to start imposing work requirements for those social programs, after we're seeing the fact that almost 500,000 people ended up dropping off of the SNAP program in the last month, just a 1 month time. 1 month time. And by the way, that's not just the first part. That started in October. 4 million people dropped off of the SNAP program from October to November. Now, this could be maybe because some of their stuff expired. Maybe it's because some of them got jobs. Maybe some of them just gave up and didn't use them anymore. But we're working in the right direction, getting people off social programs. Now, what we have to do is the same thing as what we've done in some of the state government, is as we begin to work people and wean people off the social program, we need to downsize the program. It still doesn't need to be the huge umbrella if less people are actually sitting underneath the umbrella. We got to downsize it, and then we can save some money. And maybe, just maybe, even with record tax revenue receipts that we're seeing come into the federal government, we're not going to still come out of a month at close to $500 million in a deficit, even with the record number of tax receipts that we're seeing come into the government. We're collecting more money than we've ever collected before, but yet we're still running into a deficit and spending more money than what we're actually bringing in. We need to stop that, and that's got to stop pretty much immediately. So this is the baby step. This is where we can work on that. We'll get to some of the details in this farm bill in just a second. Let's go to the phones, though, shall we? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, what's going on, Scott?
Well, it used to be in the past that reporters and journalists couldn't wait to be the first ones to present a news story
to
the public. But for some reason in Wichita, as it is a police state, reporters here never did seem to investigate who that cop was that shot that man on his porch unarmed. And it seemed to me that it may take some outside reporters who still got that striving to be a real news reporter to actually find out who this cop is and bring it out.
I'm sure that they're trying, but it's still under investigation, so therefore they're not allowed to release that information during an investigation.
I know, but I mean, reporters can find sources that can do it because, I mean, the First Amendment protects them. So,
yeah, but do you really want them to leak that information when it's still under investigation?
Well, I say that the public has a right to know because, like I say, all of those people are public officials, and so therefore they work for us, so we're supposed to have known that information a long time ago.
What, just out of curiosity, if we do find out what officer it was or find out his name or where he lives and everything about him, what good would that do? Would that solve anything?
Well, what that would do would help us identify who the killer is, because that way all cops look like they're the killer. We don't want that, do we?
Well, you got a point there. However, I would say that I think that it's going to lead to some negative impact on him by people probably storming and harassing him at his home and in public, which I don't necessarily think he needs if he's already going through stuff. Scott, I appreciate it. I got to take a bottom of the hour break. We'll shift gears a little bit. We'll talk to Professor Ben Teitelbaum when we come back after the bottom of the hour. Get your thoughts and calls. We'll continue this discussion of the Farm Bill in a bit as well. Lots to get to when it comes to social programs and weeding out crazy spending in the government. Stay here.
Giving the libs one dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Making it happen today. Welcome into it. It's great to have you along. It's a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. We love it. We appreciate it very much. So with you hanging out with us as you start your day or ending your day. Maybe you work third shift. If you do, I pity you. I feel bad. I really do feel bad for you. I worked third shift in college for one summer, and I said never Never again. Never again. But if you are, kudos to you, my friends, and appreciate you hanging out with us today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I want to shift gears a little bit from the Farm Bill. I do want to retouch on that a little bit, probably in hour number 2 and 3. Get your thoughts on that as we are talking not only just the Farm Bill, but also the work requirements for Medicare and Medicaid that Trump's trying to impose and allowing states to do the same thing, trying to do it at the federal level. We are starting to tighten up on our social program spending and who's going to be on them, and which is a totally foreign discussion from what we've heard over the last 8 years under Barack Obama. So it's kind of refreshing and kind of nice to hear. Instead of saying, let's expand it for everybody, we're saying, let's find ways that we can start weaning it down a little bit. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. But talking about freedom of speech and protecting the right for everyone to have freedom of speech, Ann Coulter was recently at the University of Colorado in Boulder. Why'd she go there? Kind of a shocker. I'm not quite sure, but there at least was not a protest to shut her down and a threat or anything like that. It was actually civil. Now, people went there and then stood up and walked out, but that's way better than actually wanting to shut down the entire event altogether. And to talk about that and more, we have Professor Ben Teitelbaum on. He's a professor at the University of Colorado at Boulder, as he does classes on Nordic studies along with ethnomusicology, and talked about the debates and dialogue that he has in his classrooms and the growing movement of conservatives on the campus in Boulder. This is what he had to say yesterday right here on The Voice of Reason. It's Professor Ben Teitelbaum. It's Professor Ben Teitelbaum back on the line with us. Ben, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Andy. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Hey, it's great to get you back on the show. It's been way too long. I really enjoyed our conversation last time, and
Likewise.
I thought it was really, really important to get you back on here, being a professor, especially being in a place like Boulder in the University of Colorado, where there's been a national understanding that University of Colorado has been a very far left, predominantly progressive campus. And with the argument nationwide about the freedom of speech and the right for students to have the free speech and to be able to bring certain speakers on. I mean, we see in California, the protests just to bring in someone like Ann Coulter or Ben Shapiro or someone like that. From your standpoint, being a professor there, have you seen that type of behavior or that type of response to certain ideas or speakers coming into University of Colorado?
Well, yes. Although if we think about like Ann Coulter and her recent the recent events that took place at University of California, Berkeley,
yes,
where she was eventually, she was shut out.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen as much pressure for that. We've had students demonstrate. We've had counter protests and things like that.
Sure, which is okay.
Which is okay. I still think it's somewhat unfortunate, because it's always, what is the purpose of drowning somebody out or blocking yourself from hearing the opinion of somebody else? I really struggle to see how anybody gains from that, or how you win an argument by doing that.
Sure.
But I certainly prefer that to outright attempts to stop somebody coming to campus or to stop somebody from speaking. I can give you an example, Andy. When Ann Coulter came to campus a couple of weeks ago, a big portion of the audience were students who had, it sounds like a heavy word, but infiltrated, gone into the event with the intent to not really sit and listen.
Sure.
But thank goodness their protest was to stand up in the middle and walk out. They deprived themselves of the opportunity to hear the speaker, but they didn't really mess it up for anybody else.
Sure.
And that's among all the ways that somebody could protest a speaker coming to campus. I suppose that's got to be one of the better ones.
Which I'm surprised Ann Coulter. I'm really excited that Ann Coulter would come to the University of Colorado like that, because why not be able to come to the campuses that that you may not be the most popular individual, but to hear what they have to say. I mean, when I went to Bowling Green State University in Ohio, we had some speakers that the college Democrats brought in that I didn't care for in any way, shape, or form, and I didn't always go to all of them, but I didn't go out and picket and protest or even try and stop them from coming, because if that's who they want to come in and have speak, then all the power to them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the move to say that someone can't come and speak, or that we're better off not knowing what somebody has to say. That's a scary sentiment for me, and one that does not in fact, belong on a university campus.
Mm-hmm.
It is the sort of place that universities work best when students are being forced, challenged to defend their ideas, also being exposed to people who especially people who really upset them.
Sure.
That's what really matters is when it's not when you go to a place and everybody recites the same ideas and you think that you're open-minded and you hear the same ideas coming from the same people all the time. It's when you get to listen to someone who really, really rubs you the wrong way and makes you think differently. That's golden to me.
Absolutely. Can you tell a difference from, you have your classes, and I'm sure that you have a lot of dialogue, and especially, with the Nordic studies, this different discussions or topics, or with your book with radicalism and nationalism, if you bring up these types of topics in the classroom and you just kind of let the students dialogue and debate on certain issues, are you able to tell a style of debate from one side or another if they've been sheltered on either side of the aisle from opposing views, as opposed to someone who's been kind of baptized in the fire for a long time and knows how to throw out the counterpoints to someone's arguments?
Oh, certainly. Andy, you and I were chatting a little bit before the show. I was mentioning, on the one hand, I've been in universities where I went to school, Brown University, very left-leaning campus. The best newspaper on campus was a libertarian paper,
sure.
and I say that not considering myself to be a libertarian in any way, but those were students who had gone out of their way, put their head in front of the open fire hydrant, and learned to survive and breathe anyways. And they were sharp, and they were better, more well read than many of the people they were arguing with.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I teach a class on radicalism at the University of Colorado, and I go out of my way to find people who can argue controversial perspectives really well. And I know, even if their views are wrong, I know that there are smart people, and I know that the students most often have not heard somebody arguing these perspectives intelligently. And that process, just to take the edge off students, just to deny them the opportunity to stereotype.
Sure.
Students who have gone through that and take an extra second to think, an extra second to reflect, I think it's very impressive, and I do think that they gain something from it.
Well, it really kind of grounds them a little bit, because you're right. When you read it in maybe the media, or you hear a blog online and you read it that way, then it becomes kind of an ideological, philosophical standpoint, to where you generalize, you categorize individuals,
Yep.
and you don't really have that personal connection. When you actually see someone face to face arguing the points that you've heard is a demonization of that person, and you have to counter it, then it really makes you think a little bit more about peeling the layer of the onion away on what you actually believe.
Yeah. I think it's true. I think most people, it's hard to say, and it's not that exciting to say in the way we talk politics these days, but most people have a lot of good things to say. Most people are smart. Most people have reasons and logical pathways that get them to the positions that they hold. It doesn't mean that there are two equally good sides to every debate, or that everybody's right about everything, but there's a lot that people have to say, and very rarely does someone hold a position because they're stupid.
Exactly. Have you seen because again, and I've been guilty of this, but I've kind of generalized the University of Colorado at Boulder all the time, and the Boulder mentality up there is being extremely progressive and kind of living in that safe space sort of thing, and I poke fun at that quite a bit. But have you seen a bit of a change on campus for the voice of many conservatives to start having a voice in Boulder there?
Yes. And yes, I certainly have. On the one hand, Boulder, in part because of its reputation, Boulder has a conservative studies program that was created by alumni, as an attempt to counterbalance the liberal reputation of the campus. There are quite a few people who are unsatisfied with that. They see the existence of one single conservative studies professorship, for example. We always have one visiting professor.
Sure.
As kind of a sign that conservatives are an extreme minority on campus and need special protection.
Sure.
So, but the more profound change, the difference is in the classroom. I give a talk at the beginning of every one of my classes where I explain that I will treat students with respect. I want them to treat each other with respect. I want them to be conscientious of each other's feelings, but my classroom is not a safe space.
Sure.
And I intend to offend students and everybody, hopefully equally.
Sure.
But I intend to offend in my classroom. That speech always goes over very well. And any time we've heard, we've had a discussion about freedom of speech, or about the right to offend, the importance of being able to hear offensive viewpoints and not feel strong in the face of confronting offensive viewpoints. Those positions feel very strong to me among the student body today. If that means that they're conservative, I'm not totally sure, but it does signal to me that there is a pushback against the notion that university campuses need to be these quarantined, highly policed, highly processed, highly editorialized spaces, where people are allowed to put pressure on faculty and other students to maintain certain language codes and things like that.
There it is, Professor Ben Teitelbaum. We chatted with him yesterday on the program. We appreciate him very much coming on the show from the University of Colorado in Boulder. You know what's nice about hearing something like that is that we have a professor who straight up says in his class, this is not a safe space. We will offend each of you and every one of you equally, hopefully, and will make you think and defend your positions no matter what you believe in. And I don't know what this professor's political opinions are. I don't think they're on the more conservative side, but you know what? I got to say, this is exactly, he reminds me actually of some teachers that I had when I was in high school. And it's exactly what we need, to where I think my high school teachers were predominantly on the progressive side of the aisle, but they fought and knew how to argue both sides of it to be able to keep the dialogue going in class. And that's exactly what university and what education is supposed to be, to make you think instead of protect you in your safe space. We appreciate that very much.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, about 6 minutes to the top of the hour. It's great to have you along today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. It's the way we roll today, better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink as we roll through the morning. And we want to hear from you. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's go to Rick with the news. What do you say?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. A crash between a passenger vehicle and a cement truck has resulted in the death of an 18-year-old Barton County woman. She died while driving yesterday a little after noontime in Barton County. The sheriff's office identified the woman killed in the crash as 18-year-old Shaylee Stover of Olmutz. Garden City Police investigating shots fired in the Garden City Community College Residential Life parking lot. That incident happened around 11 o'clock Tuesday night. A caller advised several rounds were discharged in the parking lot from a vehicle, and then the vehicle fled the scene. Police said the investigation disclosed that a verbal altercation occurred between several people in the parking lot, and during the altercation, a gun was brandished, shots were fired, no injuries reported. Pew, pew. Kansas Governor Jeff Collier has issued a verbal disaster declaration for several western Kansas counties. Several counties in western Kansas spent yesterday battling wildfires, and Collier said the declaration will allow state agencies to take whatever steps are necessary to assist when requested. The State Emergency Operations Center in Topeka is working alongside the National Guard, who have Black Hawk helicopters and ground crews on standby in case aerial water drops are needed. Fire danger is expected to be slightly less today. Kansas Department of Emergency Management asking anyone, or everyone I should say, to avoid activity that could spark wildfires. Portions of Morton and Stanton counties in western Kansas under a mandatory evacuation at one point yesterday due to a large wildfire that crossed over from Colorado. KTV reports around 90 homes in those two counties were evacuated. So What a mess out there.
There's
I tell
a mess
you what.
all over the place. You know, I came in and talked about some happy news today, and then, you know,
What do you want, man?
I
don't, you know, I don't write it. I just report it.
You just report it. Don't shoot the messenger.
And I needed to give Dan Hubbard something out in Garden City to talk about, so I thought I'd feature Western Kansas this morning.
There's a lot to get to there. We're going to talk about later in the show as well with Craig Mead about the nice little tariff that China has put onto the Milo, and the fact that we grow so much here in the state of Kansas and the agricultural side of it. Just more that the farmers have to deal with because, you know, they don't have enough on their plates.
Yeah, and after the last report that came out of the Ag Statistics Office on Monday, our wheat crop, when we've got a wheat crop rating of only 1% excellent statewide at this time of year, and the crop itself behind where it normally is on the jointing stage of growth, yeah, we've got an uphill battle for agriculture right now.
What do they say, like 30% of it is poor condition right now? Something like that?
It's not looking good, Andy.
Why? I mean, what'd they say with the reason of that? Just lack of water or what?
We've had no moisture.
We've had no moisture. Well, that's what I figured. I'm learning on this whole thing, trying to figure it out. I don't know. Maybe it grows like cactuses or something.
It's a curve, man. Life is a learning curve.
Life is a learning curve. Rick with the news there.
And
by the
that's
way,
the news.
I do have to say that you've been giving me a hard time. I've been stretching in here really bad. I am so sore. I cannot move today. This is the most painful thing I think I've ever gone through. I pushed myself a little harder than usual when I worked out a couple of days ago, because after the wife getting sick and myself getting sick and the flu and the strep throat and all that, it sinks in your muscles. And I knew that. And I'm like, you know, we need to start going more frequently, because that way when you work out, it can be released out of your muscles, so that way you don't get sick as often or frequently, and you don't get it as nearly as bad.
Andy.
But it's been a little bit since I've done that, and I pushed myself a little too hard.
Andy.
More so than I have been, and now it's a little painful.
When the heaviest thing in life that you lift is a microphone, and then you decide to go to the gym, think about it now.
There are other very heavy things that I pick up on.
A case of beer. I'll give you that.
I do 12-ounce curls very well, thank you. There you go. But yeah, no, I'm hurting on that one, so that's a lot of fun. Today is the most painful that I've felt in a while, but it is true. If you work out consistently, which I'm trying to do, get back into that whole cycle, and you do it consistently, that way the flu and the sicknesses don't sink into your muscles, and then you get sick more frequently, and then you never really lose them. If you actually stay active, then they don't get in your muscles, and then you're actually more healthy more frequently, and you don't get sick nearly as often. So that's the goal. That's the plan, because this is driving me nuts. I never used to get sick like this. I'm not sick anymore, but I went through it. Spout there for a while. It was a little brutal. Anyways, wrapping up hour number 2. Speaking of, I got a crazy story about some of the bacteria that are flying around here that are completely immune to any type of antibacteria or any type of cures that we have for anything. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Stay here.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into The Voice of Reason. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. Right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. What's happening? It's a Wednesday, hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. And it's great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, a big show today. It's a lot of fun. Coming up in about a half hour, we'll be talking with County Commissioner Jim Howell, as we do every single Wednesday. I cannot believe it's Wednesday already. It is halfway through the week. Tomorrow, after the show and after my duties here, I'm going to kind of get things rounded up. I'll be heading off up to Topeka to get ready for the big rally on Friday. We'll have more information for you on that in just a little bit, which means my duties to be able to get ready for the weekend stuff is needs to be done today. And it's It's crazy. It's a lot of fun. I am so excited about all of this, and we'll have more information for that on you. But it is Wednesday. Commissioner Jim Howell will be joining us in about 20 minutes to talk about county issues. But other than that, it's open lines to the rest of the show. 316-721-8255. We do have the Facebook Live feed that's up and rolling today. A lot of people jumping on there this morning. Good morning and welcome aboard, Anya. We are simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610 as well, if you're watching on TV. And we're just all over the place. We're everywhere. We are the fastest growing program in the entire state of Kansas, and we love that and appreciate it very much. So we have a lot to get to, but let's go ahead. What do you say? Let's kick off hour number 2 with a phone call, 316-721-8255. I do want to touch on, by the way, again, the Farm Bill, the big news that came out, Governor Collier, and he'll be joining the show, by the way, tomorrow at 8:30. Governor Jeff Collier will be on as we talk about the tariffs that China has put in place on Milo and the impact it's going to have on Kansas. Coming up in about an hour, we may have Craig Mead over at the Mid-America Ag Network jump in studio with us for a minute and give us an update on that situation and what that could potentially do to Kansas farmers. So we will talk about that. We have the details of the Farm Bill that are beginning to come out, work requirements for social programs inside and outside of the Farm Bill, and we're moving in the right direction. I started off the show in the last hour that we're moving in a positive direction, and I love giving good news early in the morning. With that said, let's go to the phones here. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Good morning, Eddie. What's happening, sir?
Well, maybe you're going to be on the other side of the fence. But
okay.
Remember, I still love you and I still respect you, okay?
Hey, I love the dialogue. What you got for me?
Okay. Well, I watched the city commission meeting yesterday.
Okay.
And Mrs. Finch went up there and was speaking.
Sure.
And she was very respectful. And
Good.
She was just a beautiful person up there. And she wasn't one of these, whatever you want to call it, but she was very respectful. And I thought it was very disrespectful for the mayor to cut off her microphone, which I saw with my own eyes and I heard with my own eyes. Now, the mayor is responsible for all city employees. A city employee mistakenly shot and killed her son.
Sure.
Now, he needs to let that lady speak. Listen, I've been a citizen of I'll be 73 on Friday, so yay. But I've been a citizen of Wichita for the most part for almost all of my life, except the time I was in the Marine Corps.
Sure.
And I support this lady. Now, the city of Wichita, this has gone on far too long. It doesn't take 3 or 4 months to investigate something. They're stalling. The problem with Wichita, and that goes for all the city agencies there, they will not admit that they ever made a mistake. Why didn't he just step up to the plate and said, "We made a mistake. There's nothing we can do." What the city needs to do is go to the table and try to compensate this lady, plus every other person that's in there. I'm very much willing to pay Mrs. Finch $1 million for the mistake, and those other individuals in there at least $100,000. And yes, let it come out of the city fund or whatever.
Sure.
But the more and more that the city of Wichita tries to demonize this poor lady, listen, it wasn't her fault. It wasn't his fault. I mean, the 2 officers that were right beside him one said that he thought that he was going back inside. The other one thought that, well, maybe he was pulling up his pants or something. But this other officer that was clear across the street, that did not have a clear view or even could actually hear what was going on, he was the one that took a shot. And in my opinion, that was a bad shot.
Sure.
And so what the city needs to do is just come up to the table and be a man about it and admit something. Good God.
Well, let's start at the beginning, because I understand where you're coming from for sure. First off, with the mother speaking yesterday, I did not get to hear it. I did not get to see it or was there to witness it. First off, why did they cut her off? Was it what she was saying, or did she just run out of time, or what was the reasoning for cutting her off?
You are allotted 5 minutes.
Okay.
And she went past 5 minutes. Now, what the woman said when the mayor said, your 5 minutes is up, the lady, Mrs. Finch, said in so many words, one of your employees took the life of my son, and I have the right to stand up here and say what needs to be said, what I want to say, which is true, which is very true. So now another thing that maybe you didn't realize was the fact that Mrs. Finch has been invited to go to Washington, D.C. to speak before Congress concerning matters like this.
Good.
They invited her. So Wichita is going to continue to get a horribly black eye because of all of this. And had they just stepped up to the plate and just said, okay, we made a hell of a mistake, although that
we
it was orchestrated.
Sure. Well, we got to be careful there, and I understand that where we could say, we made a mistake, and we need to be careful. We need to make sure this doesn't happen again, and to work for preventative measures in the future. Which I know when we talked to the city council member Brian Fry yesterday, that they're doing some internal studies on their own to figure out how to make sure that this type of situation doesn't happen again, that sort of thing. But we do need to be very careful when we say we made a mistake. I mean, the DA came out and said that the officer was justified with the shooting because, with the stand your ground laws, if there is a concern or a threat or a potential threat for you or your safety or for anybody else's safety, that you're justified in that shooting. So if they come out and say that we messed up and we're sorry and that sort of thing, that we made a mistake, and to compensate you in that sense, a compensation, I think, could be a different discussion, and we could potentially look at something like that. But to come out and say that we made a mistake, I think would only further the lawsuits to come after law enforcement on an unjustified shooting, which the DA said that it was justified. So I understand the premise, but I think we do need to be very careful when we say something like, oh, we messed up and we made a mistake, because that shows in today's society, which I don't think is what we're trying to say here, but in today's society, that shows that we were in the wrong and that we shouldn't have done that when the DA came out and said that it was a justified shooting.
Well, the deal of it is with this Mark Bennett, and that, I can tell you instances where Mark Bennett, and he's been with that department for quite a while, has made very, very ridiculous fact findings, efforts, but the deal of it is, am I for law enforcement? Absolutely.
Sure.
But Andy, seriously, and I'm about ready to go before the city commission myself, and I will, is step up to the plate and get this to a halt. It's been going on far too long.
I agree. I think it has been going on a really long time. I mean, since the beginning of December, we've been going through this, and it's painful for the city to grow and to move and evolve from this and be able to move on if it's continuously lagging with all these different investigations and lawsuits and so on and so forth. Let's get it done. Let's move on and let's learn, and then let's make sure that this doesn't happen again in our community with whatever else we decide to figure out from here on out. So I get your point for sure on that. As for letting her speak a little bit longer, I know they had that 5-minute cap and they cut her off, in certain circumstances. Maybe, it would have been good to let her speak a little bit longer. I don't know. Or just for the respect part of it. I am glad that she's going to Washington, D.C. I'm hoping that it was really Congressman Estes who's introduced the swatting bill at the federal level that has introduced and has invited her to come up and speak about the swatting incident itself, because I know that she's been in support of the swatting bill at the state level to start punishing the individuals that are doing the swatting call in the first place. So I know that she was in support of that type of legislation. So hopefully she'll be able to help something get through in a productive way and use this in a positive manner, both at the state and at the federal levels.
Yes, but Brandon Johnson,
sure,
the lone did give his condolences to the lady. Now, like I said, and I'm not going to, it has taken Andy, it's taken me months to come to this decision. But, listen, the officer, in my opinion, in my little old humble opinion, he did wrong. Okay?
Sure. Well, and we all, yeah.
Yes. We all have, in my opinion, or he didn't use the best well, instead of saying he did wrong, he didn't use the best possible judgment in that shot. And the deal of it is, when you don't make the best possible judgment, when you have a firearm in your hand, something horrible is going to happen.
Sure.
That police officer did not make the best possible judgment, and it caused the death of that young man, who happens to have a young son.
Well, I agree there. I do agree there, and I think that there is and Eddie, I want to take another phone call here, so I appreciate it very much. And look, I mean, we're in alignments for most of that. I agree that, he obviously didn't make the best judgment, that the individual, Andrew Finch, obviously didn't have a firearm, and we ended up killing an innocent individual. And he's got to live with that the rest of his life. He's got to live with that the rest of his life, at the fact that he shot and killed an unarmed man, and that's going to haunt him or her, whoever the officer was, for the rest of their lives. That's going to have to be haunted for the rest of their life. And I guarantee you that most individuals, if you know anybody in law enforcement, anybody that goes through something like that, usually does not want to go back onto the streets as a law enforcement officer. Usually they either retire, or they get another profession, or they go behind the desk and they sit in the office because they don't like to go out there, because that haunts them for the rest of their life. So the lack of judgment, it may not be the best judgment that individual used, but I would fall short in saying that the city should come out and say that they were wrong and that they made a mistake, because then that just leads to the whole more lawsuits issues when the DA, and I happen to agree with the DA on this one, to where regardless of what the judgment looked like in that situation, I don't think any of us can be able to judge in that situation on what the circumstances were and what the response should have been appropriately or inappropriately at the time with what information that they had. So I would fall short of saying that the city should come out and say that they were wrong in that sense. A compensation or a settlement maybe. Something to look at, something to consider for sure, but I would not care too much for the city to come out and say that, because the law enforcement officer was protected under the stand your ground laws, the same that we have as a private citizen or a private individual, and we made that judgment, so therefore the city has come out and said, look, the person representing us as a public employee, as an officer, was not in the wrong on this one, and therefore, I wouldn't want them to come out and say that we were wrong here, but, letting them speak a little bit longer during the time or the hearing within the city council, or being able to talk about a settlement or something, I agree with you on that, and maybe we should look at something in that sense. But Eddie, I love it. I appreciate the call, my friend. Let's sneak in another phone call here. What do you say? Here we go. Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello, this is Helen.
Helen, what's going on?
I'm doing just great, and everything's just great. I really kind of agree with this gentleman that called Eddie or whatever. That it seems like that the policy or whatever they have there in Wichita is not really following the 4th Amendment, 5th Amendment, and 14th Amendment. It's due process of law. It just can't be. You can't just be going up and to people's houses just because of the testimony of one person, and it just seems wrong. I mean, this what concerns me is this could happen to any of us. Somebody doesn't like you, and they call the police, and they come to your door, and you're totally innocent, totally unexpecting. And, some people are kind of animated, move their hands a lot and stuff like that, especially if you're caught off guard. And they'll claim that they thought that you had a gun or something like that. They're too impulsive.
Well, it's a scary situation to be in, and it's scary to think that is a possibility that could really happen to any of our homes if we just walk outside for a minute. We see a bunch of cops and they start yelling instructions at us. That's why we really need to have you're not allowed to yell fire in the middle of a movie theater, are you? I mean, it's illegal to do that because you cannot cause chaos like that. We need to have a swatting bill in place to show that if somebody wants to try and call and make a false report, we already have false report laws that we're not allowed to do, but we need to have a swatting bill to where if anybody makes that call and someone does get harmed, they need to know that they're going to be punished just as if they pulled the trigger themselves. So we need to put that in place first.
It's kind of like, they have suicide by cop. Well, this is like murder by cop.
Right. Well, again, we need to remember that this is a very rare event that happened, because there's been many other swatting calls that have happened and no one ended up getting harmed. I mean, we just saw, what was the beginning of January?
So why this time? Why did this guy get killed? And why
that's it.
Why did the officer, if he could have shot him maybe in the leg or something like that, why did he have to kill him?
Oh, well, and that's all the big discussion about whether the law enforcement acted inappropriately or not. I happen to believe that being in the situation with the situation that was presented to the officer, with how they with what they were going into, with the fact that they were being told there was an individual with a gun, extremely dangerous, that already shot his wife in the head, that had his 2 kids in the closet as a hostage, and when the individual came out onto the porch and did not abide by law enforcement's instructions of putting your hands up and not moving an inch, and he ended up moving, that it was unfortunate and it's heartbreaking, but at the same time did not follow the law enforcement's instructions, and that's why I think it got out of hand. And being dark and go ahead.
What time of night was this? I mean, maybe the guy.
It was the middle of the night.
A nap or something.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It was nighttime. It was dark.
All of his faculties. I think in the military, if like a soldier is awakened abruptly and he swings out and hits his sergeant, that he's excused for that, because sometimes, if you are awakened abruptly, you don't have all your faculties together, and you might react to something. So this poor guy, late at night, is wakened up and doesn't know what the heck's going on, and then he gets shot and murdered.
No, well, and that's what we have to look at. And again, I mean, it's unfortunate what happened, and I'm not going to justify the fact that we shot an innocent man like that, but at the same time, and I think it was like 10, 11 o'clock at night. I don't know. I know the family was still up. They were sitting in the living room. So, I mean, not everybody had gone to bed yet. So I don't think he was kind of one of those where it was asleep and not really firing on all cylinders sort of thing. But the fact is that when he went out into the porch and he put his hands up in the air, and then he moved and he made a quick movement towards the waistband, when the law enforcement told him specifically not to do that, that's when it led to the firing. And it was an individual from across the street that was in the dark, that saw the movement, that looked like a potential gun, with the mindset that there was a gun in the situation and that it was going to be a threat, and he ended up firing. And that's why this one was different than some of the other swatting incidents. We got to remember that there's been many other swatting incidences that's happened in the state of Kansas just recently in the last few months, and it didn't lead to that outcome. And that's why this one's different, and this one's not as good, and we can look at it whatever we can to make sure it doesn't happen again. But now for the violation of the Fourth Amendment and the seizures, and the private property and that sort of thing, I mean, that goes back to the same call that we had on Friday when we talked about this, is someone that we need to verify it by numerous different sources before an incident takes place. I disagree with that, because if we get a call like that, we need to eliminate and just de-escalate the situation as quickly as possible. We can't sit there and wait for a terrorist attack to continue on until we get 3 other verifications of the story before we actually move in and do something about it. The swatting incidents that didn't lead to a death were someone that came in and said, hey, you know what, we've got a call, they're on guard, they're ready to go, but the person abided by the law, they followed the instructions of the officer, they let him come and sweep through the house and check everything out, and then it was all good, happy, hunky-dory, and we moved on with our business. So everything else has been able to end the way it needed to in the other situations. The problem really came down to the fact that the individual did not abide by law enforcement's instructions and ended up getting shot because of it, because it was dark and the officer did not see what he had in his hand. Got some calls lighting up. We'll talk about this more when we come back. Got to take a break, way late on one. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Love all the phone calls, and I appreciate it very much. Eddie and Helen, I may disagree with you on those, but I agree. I understand where you're coming from on those, and I appreciate that very much. Got to take a bottom of the hour break. Went a little long in that last segment. Got some more calls on the line. Stick with us. We'll get to you here soon. Also, coming up after the bottom of the hour, Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner. He'll be joining us, talk to us about some of the county issues. The last meeting last week, the meeting coming up this week, and what to expect from them and how you can be involved in that. Stay here. Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, coming up right after the break.
time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane?
I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
What's happening? Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. It's great to have you along today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we roll. We are just a few days away from the excitement that's going to happen up in Topeka and Lenexa, Kansas. I'll be broadcasting up live on Friday morning for the Second Amendment rally up in Topeka on the Capitol. I've never been to the Capitol yet, and I'm so excited getting up there, and you can be part of it. It's at 10 o'clock directly after the show. I'll do the broadcast of the show live up there in Topeka, and then I'll be hosting and emceeing the rally at 10 a.m. in the Capitol. You can swing up and check that out. We'll have great speakers. Right afterwards, I'll be heading up to Lenexa, and we'll be covering the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting as they have different vendors and exhibitors, great speakers, all the candidates for congressional races and the governor's races, and it's going to be a big deal. They'll have the big event starting in the afternoon on Friday, going all the way through Saturday with the big shootout on Saturday morning. And you can hear all the coverage right here on KQAM. I'll have different interviews and different updates for you throughout the days, both on the radio and on the Facebook, facebook.com/1480 KQAM. So I'm really excited about it. $35 tickets if you want to go. You can visit the website, ksraweb.org, ksraweb.org, and we want to thank our sponsors for allowing me to be able to go up and cover this for the station. That is Augusta Flight Center and JD Aviation, Jimmy's Egg Auto Smart, Rob's Gun Tech and Firearms, Phil's Coins, MJ's Truck Repair in Mound Ridge, and of course the Kansas State Rifle Association. So really excited. It's going to be a really big, fun next few days, and you're not going to want to miss it right here on the KQAM airwaves. It is time, by the way, for our county update. As we have our Sedgwick County Commissioner, Mr. Jim Howell, back on the line with us. Jim, what's happening, my friend?
Well, hey, Andy, it's great to hear you talk about the KSRA event this week. This is a great event. I plan on attending that. I'm proud of you for making this important and taking time to be up there as well. I tell you what, I have so much appreciation and thankfulness to the KSRA for what they've done. People in the state may not realize the force behind some of the changes that have been made. But going back to 2005 or so, I think our state passed concealed carry law. I think it was 5 times before it actually was allowed to go into law. It was vetoed, I think, 4 times. I believe it was either 2006 or 2007 that it was actually allowed to go into law because we had such huge numbers. But by the way, we were the 45th state in the nation to do that. We were just ahead of Illinois and Washington, D.C. So that was terrible history. But since then, our state has become, I think, the second best gun-free state. Pro Second Amendment state. Let me say it that way. Pro Second Amendment state in the nation. And that success, that change, I think, is directly attributable to the Kansas State Rifle Association. They've done a tremendous job of educating and bringing awareness to the right to bear arms in our state. And they have pushed forward a number of laws that we get to enjoy. And I think that our state is a benefactor of their tremendously hard work behind the scenes. And so I can't speak well enough of them. I'm extremely impressed with what they do. And so, by the way, I know lots of people. I talk to people at the doors all the time, being a politician. I talk to people at the doors, and they say, yeah, I'm a member of the NRA. I say, well, that's great, but what about the KSRA? They're like, what?
Sure.
The reality is this is a Kansas affiliate of the NRA. And a membership's is very affordable. It's like, I probably should know this exactly. I think it's like $35. It's not very much money, but it does provide the funding for us to continue to defend our laws as well as advance new laws. And so they're definitely moving the ball down that field. And I'll just tell you what, you can't find a better way to spend $35.
I love that.
So absolutely. I just want to say, if people aren't members of the Kansas State Rifle Association, please go on the ksraweb.org website and to become a member. And then, again, it sounds like a boring thing to do, go to a business meeting, but let me just tell you, the business meeting up in Lenexa this year is not boring. They talk about these principles, that it's educational. And so it may sound boring, but frankly, it's not boring at all. And I've gone to these meetings year after year after year, and they have tremendous speakers. I always learn a lot, and I'm always glad I went. So I just want to tell people, I know it's busy time of year, but it's definitely worth the time and the money to go to that meeting.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting up there myself. And first off, I'm really excited about the rally on Friday. I've heard a lot of people are going to be showing up for that. I've never been to the Capitol yet, so I am excited to get up there and broadcast the show live up there Friday morning and do that rally, being able to MC that, and be able to see all the speakers and then see the shootout Saturday morning. It's going to be a heck of a weekend, and if anybody enjoys the Second Amendment in any way, shape, or form, this is something they're not going to want to miss.
And I understand it's 420, so you be careful.
Well, and that's the thing. Come on, as the host and the MC of the rally in Topeka on 420, I got to throw in a couple pot jokes in there, too. Come on.
I'm sure there's going to be a few, yeah. Well, anyway, back to county business, and that's really why I'm calling you in today. Andy, I want to say thank you for the chance to speak about county business.
We love it.
We had a very interesting meeting last week, another very long meeting. I think it was three and a half hours. But we spent a lot of that time talking about a couple of issues. Last week we talked extensively about the new administration building. I don't know if you remember that we talked about this before, but we're being kicked out of our own building. So we've actually desired this change for, I'd say, a long time. Our court system needs the space here, and we are kind of, I think originally came to this building probably because it was convenient and it was extra space. But you can imagine that in today's 21st century culture, a few more courtrooms and a few more judges is kind of necessary. And so we're really just going to need to move out and give them that space. So we're looking for admin building, and it's not as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of options on the table. And, of course, we're having 5 commissioners. You usually have about 5 strong opinions, and it's hard to find consensus on anything at this point. So, unfortunately for our staff, their to-do list just grew last week by quite a bit. And anyway, we're moving towards a solution slowly. I feel like it's about as fast as it can go, but this is a really big decision, and this will impact county government for the next 50 years at least, and so we want to do this right.
Sure.
And anyway, that's ongoing. We're probably going to come back and visit that again around the middle of May. Right now we have staff that's going to be collecting more data based on our last meeting. So that's kind of the big deal from last week.
Well, I tell you that if you guys pick another building like you did, like the local DMV when you upgraded that, what was it last year or something? I mean, you guys found a really great venue for that. So hopefully you're able to find something efficient and spacious and just kind of what you need for the county issues for you guys as well.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for. The reality, one of the big debates is, should we build a new building or should we just find an old building that's not being used somewhere? And that's part of the debate. And one of our requirements, it's kind of self-imposed, but one of our requirements we've given ourselves is it needs to be in the downtown core. Well, that limits our options, and there are a number of buildings that we could look at that are there's plenty of office space available downtown, but trying to find one in that 3-block area is challenging. And there are a number of options, but all of them have lots of caveats and things that makes you scratch your head a little bit and say this is a concern. And so in some ways, building a new building in some ways seems like it could be a little bit easier in some ways, but it's obviously going to be a little bit more money.
Sure.
And so that we have challenges ahead of us. We'll figure this one out. I appreciate the public if they want to weigh in on this. Of course, as I say every week, we love to hear from the public. We always allow public comments. You can either sign up the day of the meeting, or show up here and sign up to speak, or we'll even call on you if you didn't sign up to speak. We'll allow people to speak on our issues, and so we invite the public to do that. Again, we meet at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays. Most Wednesdays, I do have a bit of a schedule change for you coming up. I'll explain here shortly, but it looks like the last Wednesday of the month we don't normally meet, so that's next week. We won't meet next week. And the week after that, I'll just go ahead and get into this now. Week after that, we've got a statewide conference that's happening here in Wichita, and we are hosting that here in Wichita this time for county commissioners, as County Commissioners Conference. And so since we're hosting that happens to fall on the Wednesday, the first Wednesday of May. I think it's May 2nd, if I remember right. But that becomes a conflict for us as well. Plus, we have the Wichita Prayer Breakfast. If you've never done that before, Andy, let me encourage you. Another great event we do every year in Wichita, but the Wichita Prayer Breakfast is that same morning. It starts early. I believe we start gathering around 6:30 in the morning. I think around 7 o'clock the program begins. And that usually lasts until about 8:30 in the morning, if I remember correctly. People can Google that and find that. But it's a great opportunity, and I think all of the commissioners typically historically do participate, but at least attend the Wichita Prayer Breakfast each year. And that only happens once a year. So that's another great event. But because of those two conflicts, we're going to cancel the May 2nd BOCC meeting. And so that's unfortunate, but we'll catch up on the following meeting after that. Anyway, back to the other things that are happening. Probably the biggest thing today is you might remember a few months ago we talked about Spirit Aerosystems is going to do an expansion here. They want to invest $1 billion. They want to grow another 1,000 jobs. And
that seems to be moving along pretty good. Yeah.
Right. Well, that thing was considered by Wichita yesterday on their city council meeting, and I think Brian Fry talked about it yesterday morning, and they did pass 6-0 unanimously across the street. They're missing one councilman yesterday, but 6-0, and so it comes to us now as a kind of a final stop. And our chance is to get to consider this. Some of the data that has come together, unfortunately, makes it a little bit less of a return on investment that we were told originally, but it's still a pretty good deal. I guess the thing I look at this, I know Spirit's got options. The Carolinas, North and South Carolina, are just really going very aggressively after companies like Spirit Aerosystems. If I remember correctly, I think Boeing received an incredibly large incentive package for the next production line up there in Seattle. I don't remember the exact number. I think the last two of these were $10 billion to $100 billion incentive packages by the state up in Washington State. So it's hard to imagine Spirit's not being solicited to come to other places. And so for us to retain them and actually see them grow and invest more money here in Wichita is a good success. And of course, I understand that these are challenging issues, but between the city and the county, they're going to receive about $10 million to build, actually help build a building. I think it's a $23 million building they're going to build here. But along with that, they're going to put in $1 billion of capital investment elsewhere. Plus, they're going to grow 1,000 jobs, and they've also guaranteed that job number for 20 years. And so you add that up, it's in the, if you want to look at the job, the benefit to having those jobs in our community by itself, we're talking north of 10 to 15, maybe $20 billion.
Sure. And
then the ancillary jobs on the outside, it could be about $50 billion. And so this is a good thing for our community to have that guarantee that they're going to stay here and not move away like Boeing did. And so we get to consider this project today. This will be their final stop for this consideration. It's called Project Eclipse. It's one of probably our biggest things on the agenda today. I expect it will probably pass, but it's going to make for an interesting discussion. And so that'll probably be our biggest thing today. We have a couple of other things that are interesting. I think this is interesting. We've got a number of young people that are going to be recognized this morning for graduating an internship program. We actually have internship programs here at Sedgwick County, and we allow high school students that are developmental
Sure.
disabled. I'll say it that way. But we allow them to. I can't say the word. We allow them to intern with the county. They do a number of internships, different organizations. We've got a number of these kids that are going to graduate from this program. I think it's just great to see these kids. We also have a reception for them as well. And I think it's going to be fun to see these kids and hear what they've done and what they've learned. And so I'm looking forward to that. We actually have 3 grants on our agenda. I've told this to you before, I think, Andy, we have 77 active grants right now.
Wow. And,
out of our $425 million budget, I'd say about 25% of our budget is related to grant dollars. 77 active grants, and today we're going to consider 3 different grants. One of them's for over $3 million, one's for $3.8 million, and the final one, I think, is another $625,000. And so today we're going to have about $8 million worth of grants to consider.
Well, you guys are going to be busy for sure today, and that'll be kind of nice to see. I really am excited. We got about 30 seconds left before we got to wrap it up here, but I am really excited about you guys voting on, as the city did yesterday, when it comes to the Spirit Aerosystems. I don't see any reason why that one would be shot down. Do you?
I don't think so. I think it's going to go forward. It always has a good discussion, though. I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun discussing it, but we'll vote, and I feel confident that's going to pass.
I love it. Very good. It's a Sedgwick County Commission. It's happening today. Jim Howell, County Commissioner, on with us. One more time, people want to show up to the meeting, have part of the discussion, be able to voice their opinion. How can they do so today?
Well, in person, it's on the 3rd floor of the county courthouse. It's at Central and Main. This is a blue-colored building. This is on the northwest corner and third floor. We start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're very welcoming. We love people to come and talk with us and meet with us. It's a great opportunity. If they can't do that, we're on Channel 8 live, broadcast live, and we also have rebroadcast on Channel 8 as well as City Channel 7, and some of the other cities also pick us up. They can also catch us on YouTube. Our meetings are on YouTube. Just look for Sedgwick County Government, and you'll find our meetings on YouTube. That's the best way to watch our meetings if you want to watch them later. So great opportunities for people to engage their government. I hope they will. I hope they'll do that.
You guys are all over the place. Jim, we always appreciate it, my friend. I'll see you up there in Lenexa this weekend for the Second Amendment rally. That'll be fun.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thanks for all you do, man.
Hey, always a pleasure there. Let's wrap up this one. We'll take a break, wrap up hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason today on a Wednesday. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. It's going by way too fast today. We got so much to talk about, so much to get to. This portion of The Voice of Reason brought to you by the AARP. We didn't get a chance to do it on Monday, but we're really excited to chat with Marin Turner on the line with us. Marin, how are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Hey, we're doing great. It's great to have you on, and I can't believe it's halfway through the week already. This week is going by way too fast, but that's a nice thing, and at least it's kind of warm today, so that's good too.
Yes, if it's going by very quickly, that means you're having fun. And isn't that the way to live life?
We always have fun. We have way too much fun on this show. That's what we do. We got to talk to you about this week is a volunteer week across the country, which means if you have opportunities to volunteer, be part of something, to be able to contribute in some way, shape, or form, it's a great opportunity to do so. But along with the volunteering, we do have to say that the CARE Act that you guys have been working on ended up going through the legislature. So that's some good news.
Yes, yes, as you mentioned, April 15th through the 21st is National Volunteer Appreciation Week. And this is really a good time to just say thank you to volunteers who contribute their time and expertise throughout the year. You mentioned the CARE Act. Well, we would not have been able to lobby all of the legislators we needed to see if we didn't have volunteers who said, you know what, I want to help make a difference in the lives of caregivers. If you come to our Movies for Grown-Ups, which is going to be something that we do every other month, we're going to be featuring Molly's Game this Thursday. If you come, and we hope you do, you'll be greeted by volunteers who will say thank you for coming, who will help you get registered, and make sure that you get your seat and so on and so forth. Our volunteers are also experts when it comes to helping people file their taxes. I know people are scurrying trying to get that done. Well, we have volunteers at tax aid sites throughout Wichita who have raised their hand and said, I'll take that training by the IRS so I can help people who need some help with filing their taxes. So this is really a really great time to say thank you to volunteers.
Absolutely. There's volunteers all over the place, it sounds like, that are helping out, which is very much needed. And as you mentioned, whether it's the Movies for Grown-Ups, whether it is the tax aid that you have, or even the Wichita Grandparents Park. I know we haven't talked about that in a while, but a lot of people are still enjoying that, correct?
They are, and we are planning more and more things to hold in the Grandparents Park. We're going to have an ice cream social and some things throughout the year, and so we hope people will tune in and call us to find out, what's going on across Wichita. I also want to make the point that volunteers save our state millions of dollars. If we didn't have volunteers who would be willing to run errands, to help people with their finances, to help them with self-care, everything from bathing to wound care, cleansing. Some people would end up in a nursing home, or, they might die even. So we have a lot to thank volunteers for.
Absolutely. I mean, they help out quite drastically, which is really, really nice. Now that the CARE Act did get passed, when will that take effect, and when can we start seeing some of the response from that?
Well, the CARE Act will become implemented beginning in July. We've already gotten lots of requests from organizations across the state for presentations on, what exactly does the CARE Act cover and how can we help? And so if you'd like for AARP to come out and talk to your group about the CARE Act, we're more than happy to do that. Just give us a call at 1-866-448-3619 or log on to our website at www.aarp.org/ /KS for more information.
Very good. We do need to remind everybody as well that it's still about a month out, but start gathering things as we're doing the spring cleaning. But coming up on May 14th is the shredding event. If you have any documents, papers, and I was so funny. My wife had heard the interview when we talked to you a couple weeks ago about the shredding event coming up, and she said, "Oh, good, get the date and remind everybody when that is because we're definitely going to need that because we have our tax papers, our tax filings, our documents. We have electric and utility bills from like 5 years ago that I don't think we need any longer."
Yes. Well, again, you can log on to our general AARP site to look at the whole list of things that you need to hold on to, how long you need to hold on to them. And then there's some things you can let go right away. So we encourage people to come out, join us on May 14th at Dillon's, and we'll be talking more about that in the future. But, start boxing up those things that you need to get rid of. That will help protect you against identity theft.
I love it. Maren Turner with the AARP. We got about 30 seconds left, but one more time, how can people get a hold of you there at the AARP?
They can call our toll-free number at 1-866-448-3619. Log on to our website at www.aarp.org/KS.
There it is, Maren Turner. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
Thanks, Andy.
Always a pleasure. They're brought to you by the AARP. Check them out, aarp.org/KS for the state of Kansas. Lots more coming up. We'll shift gears a little bit. It's Open Lines U for hour number 3. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about.
Don't get fooled again.
Welcome into The Voice of Reason. I'm Andy Hoosier. It's great to have you along, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. We're on Facebook Live. We're all across TuneIn, KQAMradio.com. You can check it out. It's great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you want to join into the program. We've had a heck of a show today. Lots of ground covered. We have a lot more to get to today. And it's funny because I started off the show this morning at 6 a.m. with some really good news. Here's the headlines that I found. Food stamp usage drops over 500,000 in a single month. And by the way, that's on the low end because it's actually been happening frequently over the last few months. From October to November, 4 million people dropped off the food stamp program. Just in 1 month, October to November. Then we had 329 from November to December, and now December to January, 587,000, almost 600,000 people dropping off the food stamp program. People getting away from social programs. Then we see, according to The Hill, 1.7 million people could be impacted by Medicaid work requirements in 10 different states. President Donald Trump actually wanting to impose work requirements for Medicaid for certain individuals. Not everybody, obviously. If you're elderly and retired, no, you're not going to have to go back to work. If you're disabled, no, you're not going to have to go back to work. But if you're a work age, able, ability individual, then you have an opportunity to work. And then all you have to do is just do 20 hours of work, and you can qualify for Medicaid. So we have that. Then we have the Farm Bill that's coming out, the 2018 Farm Bill. We will get Congressman Ron Estes along with a few other congressmen and senators, hopefully, to come on and talk about the Farm Bill and some of the stuff happening with the Farm Bill, as we're seeing some positive movement there as well. Working on getting rid of, shortening some of the social programs coming out of the farm. Why we have to have spending of social programs in a farm bill, I don't understand. We'll talk about that in just a second as well. But we have that moving. The bad side of all this is that, as you know, with the trade war, with the tariffs that we're having with China and the debate we're going on with China, the news came out as of a couple of days ago that China will be putting a tariff onto Milo that will be affecting Kansas pretty dramatically. Kansas Governor Jeff Collier, he'll be joining the show tomorrow on the here, but also we got to get our update from our egg guy as well. And we haven't done this in a while. It's time for our egg update. As Mr. Craig Meek in studio.
Yikes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you this morning, Andy?
We're living it. So we were talking a little bit earlier this morning in the fact that Milo is a huge thing here in Kansas, that we produce a massive amount compared to what we do as a nation.
Milo or grain sorghum or
that stuff.
Maize.
Which, first off, what is Milo sorghum? What is it used for? I don't know.
A lot of different things. It's used in it can be used for food. It can be. I guess I should get into the microphone here, couldn't I? It can be used for, and they're figuring out ways to use it for ethanol. It's used for animal feed. There's a ton of things that it's used for. And it's a big use. It has a big use in China. One of the things that makes this thing, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce announced yesterday a 179% tariff on United States sorghum going into China because they're accusing our farmers and our marketers to dumping it into China, which is, of course, baloney.
Dumping it in, they're buying it, and then we just dump it over to them. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is 179% tariff on United States sorghum. The problem with this is that Kansas grows about 50% of all the sorghum that's grown in the United States. A lot of people don't know that, but we're 45% one year. I mean, it just varies from year to year, of course.
But we're close to half.
About half of all the sorghum grown in the United States is grown right here in Kansas, and about half of that is exported to China. So this 179% tariff, this is, in my opinion, this is terrorism. I mean, this was done to create the most amount of damage to the most innocent people. This is political terrorism, in my opinion. The Chinese Minister of Commerce started talking about imposing this 179% tariff. Good news is you're talking about Governor Collier coming on your show tomorrow. I talked to him yesterday afternoon. They started really early on this because as soon as they got the news, him and his crew started working on it. They're working with the USDA. They're working with the U.S. Trade Representative. They're going to try and figure out how they can do something about this. And what
can be done? I mean, is it a President Trump fighting with China thing? Is it something that we can try and offset locally here or statewide? Or what can be done?
There's a number of things politically that can be done, but of course, China and the United States have gone into this tit for tat thing over the last several months on trade. And so I don't know how this is going to work out. And Governor Collier was not really wanting to be. He wasn't going to spill the beans quite yet until they get things figured out. But rest assured, they are working very diligently. The U.S. Trade Representatives involved in this, and, of course, the USDA. But it is just – and I talked to Jesse McCurry, who's the head honcho at the Kansas grain sorghum, and they're up in arms about it too, obviously. And they've got a group of people that will be communicating with the governor and the trade representatives.
Oh, this is going to be a big deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal because this is enormous. I mean, we export, like say, about 50% of our sorghum goes to China. This is millions and millions and millions of dollars every year for the Kansas economy and the farm economy, certainly. So this is
not to mention close to 25% of the entire Milo for the country that's going over there.
Yeah, this is huge. So this is a big deal, and I honestly don't know how they're going to approach this. I don't know what they're going to do, but I can assure you that the governor and his staff and USDA is working really, really hard on this very quickly because this just can't, and as I was talking to the governor yesterday, this seems like it was a direct slap in the face to Kansas because just as we thought we were getting things smoothed out a little bit, and then this thing pops up. But the Kansas, the Kansas farmers just had kind of a tough go for the last couple of years, and this is really just something else that we don't need. So
we don't. I mean, we've talked about it before with the average salary. Or the average income after all the expenses for the average farmer in the state of Kansas, and it's floating around close to $4,000 to $10,000, $4,000 to $20,000, which is ridiculous. Yeah, before we used to be making close to $100,000 a decent living, now you can barely afford to actually become a farmer. Yeah, then you see the reform with NAFTA. And you see the farm bills coming out to where, there's the crop insurance and some things in there that are actually necessary, but then 80% of the farm bill being actually social programs saying, hey, farmers, that's great, but we're not going to focus on you. We're going to focus on other people. Then we see trade wars like this to where we get affected personally, and you're right, it's going to be a slap in the face to farmers. I don't know how they're going to come back from something like this.
Well, one of the things about the American farmer is they're very resilient, and they learn to go with the flow, and they create new markets. And that's one of the other things. This is not a good situation, and hopefully that our government will be able to kind of circumvent some of this. But we're always creating new markets. We figure out new ways to use the products that we create, the products that we grow and raise. So this is definitely a big old bubble, but the American farmer is a pretty resilient and creative individual. So we'll get through this just like we have everything else.
We figure out a way. Here's what I'm concerned about. I mean, I know the government's working on trying to offset this and trying to fix it. I'm almost wondering, because I don't like to, I mean, being a conservative, don't like to necessarily give the government more power to do more things. But I almost wonder if we say, you know what, China, heck with you. We're just not going to sell it to you anymore. We'll find a new market to actually sell it to, and we'll make the same profit we were.
I think that's probably one of the things that they're working on. There are other ways to market this to other countries. Certainly, China. The situation with China is it's such a big market for everything. It's a huge market for our soybeans. It's a huge market for pork. It's a huge market for Milo, obviously. And so that's one of the things that makes it tough. So, but sorghum is leaning more towards the ethanol production is involving more and more sorghum. So there's a number of ways that it can be used. And then, our government's trying to figure out a way that we can keep some of our stuff here and use it for ourselves.
Sure.
But there's a lot at work in this. One of the things that when you start talking about international trade, it's
there's a lot of factors that go into it.
It's a lot more complicated than just I'll buy this if you'll give me a nickel.
Exactly.
Well,
and that's why I wonder, if we're going to start negotiating hard with China, because I mean, so far, and Donald Trump was absolutely right when he campaigned on this, saying that we've had terrible negotiators, that we've made terrible trade deals, and that we're not in those. So if he starts to get the butt back from some of these countries that like the deals that we're in right now, if we start saying, fine, you know what, if you're going to put these tariffs on it, we're just not going to trade with you, we cut them off, they're going to come back groveling pretty soon, and we can start playing hardball with some of these countries.
And see, that's the thing. China, there's no way you can break it down any other way. China has never played fair, ever, with anything. And so this is just another symptom of that same issue. So, it's a tough situation, but our Kansas governor's hard at work on it. The USDA is working hard on it already, and this is we haven't heard the last of this. I can guarantee.
That's very true. Very true. Craig Mead with the Mid-America Ag Network. And as I mentioned, we'll be talking with Governor Jeff Collier on the show tomorrow at 8:30. We got about a minute or so. I know you got to get back and do some other stuff as well. But an update on the wheat reports, a wheat harvest. It sounds like
that's another situation. It's pretty.
Another slap in the face.
There's another slap in the. We could use some rain here in Kansas. Obviously, we're really having some issues with that. Kansas and Oklahoma wheat is not in the best of shape. It was a little fractionally better on the last report than the week before, but really, unless we get some rain, it's going to be kind of tough. Kansas and Oklahoma in really sad shape. We're trying to cover that this week on the Mid-America Ag Network. We're kind of keeping up with tracking down how things are looking for wheat in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Nebraska. So,
what rain dance can I do?
I don't know. We'll get together and see what
we'll figure out what we can do there. I'll do the big fire pit in the backyard and dance around it this weekend. Soil temperature reports. I know you've been tracking those. Everything pretty good with planting area.
Took a hit last weekend with those cold temperatures. We're starting to warm up in Kansas. Oklahoma has gotten up into the low 50s in the southern part of the state, but we've still got a few degrees to go here in Kansas. So hopefully we'll get some warmer weather this week and maybe.
Well, it depends if we have 80 degrees today and snow tomorrow. I mean, who knows?
That's what you get for living in Kansas.
What you get. Craig, me appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
There we are. Going to take a break here. Big news on that front. We'll stay focused on that again. We'll have Governor Jeff Collier on the show tomorrow talking about that. The trade war with China continues, and I tell you what, I feel a lot more confident now with President Donald Trump negotiating it than I would like Hillary Clinton negotiating this if she were president. So we are in, I feel, decent hands to be able to make this happen. At least we can either get it back on track or, you know what, we'll take our product elsewhere. It's that good enough, and we're not going to sell ourselves short for that 170% tariff on there. Heck with that. We're not going to deal with something like that. This is The Voice of Reason. Got to take a break. We'll open up lines to you. It's open lines for the rest of the show. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Minutes past the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we roll. It's open lines you for the rest of the show. Last 40 minutes or so, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, it's scary. I don't know, you farmers out there, everybody involved in the agricultural community, I say this all the time, I have no idea how you do it. I really don't. So you're already scraping by. You have a poor wheat harvest right now without the moisture. 50% of the country's milo, roughly half of all the milo and sorghum that's actually produced in the country, we make right here in Kansas. That shows how important it is for agriculture here in the state. And then what do? Hey, let's put 170% tariff on there. Unbelievable. Yeah, we're not going to pay that. We're not going to pay that. And here's what we need. We need strong, bold leaders to say we're not going to deal with that. Donald Trump started the whole trade war thing. Yeah, you know what? We had bad negotiating and trade deals. They've been bad trade deals for a really long time. Obviously, if we would have had good trade deals, we may not be in the deficit that we are right now as a nation. We may not be in a debt as we are right now in a nation. We may not be spending as much as we are right now as a nation because you guys didn't get it fixed in the first place. So Donald Trump's going to come in and use his business experience to negotiate and deal and be able to haggle. And if it is going to cause some uprising, then let it cause some uprising, because when you spoil a bratty kid for a long enough time, they come to expect it. And when things begin to change, they don't like it. And that's what we're up against right now. We're up against the spoiled, bratty little kids who have been given every piece of candy when they were asked, who has been given every video game that they asked for, who has been given everything that they've wanted for their entire life, and now they're in their high school at times, and they run into somebody who doesn't operate that way, and they get into a tiff with them. And that's what we're up against right now. China is the spoiled, bratty little kid who's been dominating the discussion when it comes to negotiations and trade deals with the United States for a really long time, and we're about to say, we're going to do something different here. So what do? Oh, fine, we'll just put 170% tariff on your sorghum. Yeah, you know what? We're not going to pay that. So if you want the product, then you better actually, do it properly, or you can get it somewhere else and we'll take our business somewhere else and you can go without the sorghum if that's what you want. That's fine. There's plenty of other nations around the world that will use it. Heck, we're starting to go negotiate with North Korea. Why don't we start trading with them? I don't know. There's the announcement, according to CNBC, that North and South Korea are going to announce the official end to the war and the conflict for those two nations. We had Mike Pompeo that did a secret meeting with Kim Jong-un over Easter weekend to set up the meeting between Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump. So we're not on the best of terms, but at least some of the rhetoric's died down a little bit. Maybe we'll start saying, hey, you know what? If you play nice, we'll play nice. Here's a product for you that normally would go to China. You guys are going to get it now because maybe you're going to start playing nice with us. That's what we got to start doing. There are other players in the game here. We don't have to do it all on our own. Let's go to the phones. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
Hello, this is Bill.
Hey, Bill. How are you, sir?
Just a little off the trade thing, but have you heard what the latest status of the internet with when the Obama administration and the Obama Republican Congress turned over the internet to the world?
Yeah, with the what was it, the Internet Freedom Act or something like that they did to try and really to where they began to regulate it. It's a good question. It really hasn't popped up in the news as of lately. I know that when Ajit Pai, I know when Ajit Pai took over the FCC, which was again another Kansan that came in and starting to promote conservative values. He spoke at CPAC this year and we talked about some of the ideas. He did bring it up, and it's something that they're beginning to reverse. I don't know if it's been voted on or reversed as of yet, but I know it's been in the discussion so that we can actually start getting back to a real free and a little bit less regulated internet access again. So I know it's been in the works, but that's a good question because it hasn't been really talked about in the mainstream as of lately.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. No, again, we talk about the successes. I love being able to give good news. We have one hell of an administration. One heck of an administration. President Donald Trump. We got Nikki Haley that won't take any crap from anybody else in the United Nations, which some of those other nations that don't necessarily take kindly to females and just have someone stern like that talking to them at the United Nations is fantastic. Mike Pompeo talking with Kim Jong-un, talking with North Korea, either from the CIA standpoint or the Secretary of State standpoint. Doing great things. Ajit Pai and the FCC deregulating internet, deregulating communications. Maybe we can loosen up on some of the regulations on radio. Hint, hint, wink, wink. We're doing great things. Now, you're right. That's something that hasn't been brought up in a while, so we do need to look at that, and that'll be a discussion I can look into. Maybe we can get somebody on to talk about that because it's something that we need to focus on. The regulations of the EPA, the water regulations for farmers. Let's make it happen, baby. Let's keep it rolling. This is the Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, we're making it happen today, having more fun than what we're allowed to be on a daily basis. That's just the way we roll today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. Welcome in. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It's open lines to you for the last half hour of the program. A message on Facebook Live. Mike Pompeo meeting secretly with North Korea over Easter weekend. Yeah, it may have been talking about setting up a meeting with President Donald Trump. It may have been talking about the nuclear options between the two nations. He'll probably be considered some kind of collusion between Mike Pompeo. I mean, come on, they've already tried to tie him between Russia because he owns a business in Kansas that purchased products from a Chinese company that ended up being controlled by the government. Oh. And they were just parts that he purchases all the time because they're parts for his oil and natural gas company or whatever he owns. And it was just parts from them, and they ended up owning it in China. And now he did not disclose that. So therefore, he's probably a Russian agent or probably a Chinese agent already. In the fact that he met with North Korea, then it's all making sense now. It's all making sense. Let's go ahead and play it here.
It's your Pinko Flaming Commie Corner.
There it is. So we're going to put our tinfoil hats on for a second. We're going to play the conspiracy theory for a second. It's all because of Mike Pompeo. Right here in Kansas, good old Kansas boy, Mike Pompeo, former congressman from the 4th Congressional District. It's all because of him we're seeing the high tariffs from China, that we're seeing everything happen right now, and it's all collusion. I mean, come on. He's a business owner that bought a product from China and didn't disclose it because it went to his business and that's all it was. But he probably is colluding with China, and therefore he's probably a Chinese agent. Then he takes a secret meeting to North Korea to try and talk about meeting with President Donald Trump and the nuclear options and everything. China got really upset because they got wind of the fact that Mike Pompeo is having an affair with North Korea instead of actually meeting with China. And the fact that the Chinese government, who owned the business that Mike Pompeo bought the products from, coincidentally, and therefore they have a love relationship apparently with the Chinese government, Mike Pompeo, then China is really, really upset, and they're jelly. They're totally jealous. They're totally jelly because of the fact that Mike Pompeo did a secret meeting with North Korea, and that's why they put the 170% tariff on the Milo. It all makes sense now. It is a love triangle between Mike Pompeo, the colluding spy agent from China, who's now becoming a spy agent from North Korea. It all makes sense now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very good at putting the dots together and connecting the dots from point A to point B on this show, and that's exactly what we're able to do right here. We figured it out. It all makes sense now. 316-721-825. The fact is, I guarantee you there's probably going to be a story somewhere in the nation that says, radio talk show host finally connects dots. And look at this, the Russian agents and the Chinese agents and the North Korean agents, and they're all working together, and it proves collusion with President Donald Trump's administration. Another reason why Mike Pompeo is a terrible, horrible human being, right? Yeah. Horrible human being. What do you say? Let's go to the phones here. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, what's going on?
Well, this deal with our foreign interests financially and stuff like that, God said for us to be the head and not the tail, that our government leaders have turned us into the tail.
Well, and we've accepted it. I mean, we've been so complacent like this for a long time that people don't think that way anymore. They think under their mindset that we are the followers, that we just need to follow the direction the government needs to go when it comes to trade deals, negotiations, taxes, or spending, or debt, or whatever. When the government says that's what we're going to do, we just follow suit. We haven't been trained mentally anymore to learn to think for ourselves and make our own decisions because we are followers in a nation now.
Our government has tried to buy friends. You can't buy friends. God says you can't buy friends.
That's very true. That's a great point, Helen. I appreciate that very much. I mean, you can't buy friends. You can try, but are they really your friends? I mean, you see enough people. I mean, come on. You see the depression of people who are maybe on the wealthier end who end up trying to buy friends or that sort of thing, and they're just not. They're just not that happy. And the government's trying to do the same thing. Look, complacency is not a good place to be. If a country comes back and says they want to place 170% tariff on the product you're sending into them, then apparently they don't value that product enough to where they actually want to utilize it, and they're just looking for money, and they become greedy, and we can walk away from the deal. It's very simple. It's a very simple deal. Now, I know that there's obviously it's international trade. It goes a lot deeper than that there. But on the basic level, if you're trying to go sell something and they say, yeah, you know what, that's great. I want the product, but you need to sell it to me for a heck of a lot cheaper so I can make more of a profit off it. Or you need to pay me to give it to me. Then you're not going to do that deal, are you? You're going to walk away and say, there are plenty of other people that I'll sell this product to. There's plenty of other people that I'll sell this whatever, this car or this house or this whatever, because I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen. There are plenty of other nations that'll want to buy our sorghum, our milo in the state of Kansas, from the state of Kansas. And the fact that we produce half of what's produced altogether in the nation, that's insane. Kansas. We are resilient, my friends. I don't know how you do it, but you're resilient and you continue to make it happen. And it falls directly in line with the farm bill that's coming out as we're starting to see maybe, just maybe a little bit of a benefit or a little bit of productivity when it comes to reforming some of our farm bill and reforming some of the social programs on there and work requirements coming into the SNAP program that Democrats do not like. And I have to give credit to Paul Ryan, even though that he's out and he says he doesn't want to do this anymore, him coming out and saying that it is a good bill when it comes to being able to put place work requirements onto the SNAP program, affecting really close to 2 million people that are on food stamps, and saying that you need to work 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week in order for you to qualify for it, unless, of course, you're elderly and retired or you're disabled. It's a very simple thing. If you're of able body and of working age, then you need to be working at least 20 hours a week in order to qualify for food stamps. What's wrong with that? Right now in the nation, we actually have a worker shortage. We're talking about jobs, need more jobs, need more jobs, need more jobs. Well, we have a lot of jobs. We need to find the people to fill the jobs. Right now, we're in an odd situation. Usually, we have people that are on the unemployment line that are just waiting to try and get jobs. And right now, it's going the other direction. Under the Trump economy, we boomed so much and we've grown so much that now we have businesses looking to expand and they don't have the people to fill the positions. So what do? That's when we start looking at the unemployment line, which is what we have to do because we have to look at our own first, right? That doesn't mean that we start increasing Visa cards to come in and start doing the jobs. That means that we start looking at the unemployment line and we start bringing people off the unemployment line, and we start taking people off the social programs to make a healthy living and make a happy wage on their own. And know that some of them may not be the most desired positions. Some of them may not be ones that you necessarily like, but you know what? It's a job. And we've become a society of laziness to where, that's a below me. I'm not going to take something like that. I don't want to take something like that. Trust me. Work some terrible jobs that I'm not very proud of, but yet at the same time I've done because it brings in a paycheck, and that's what you have to do. I wish I would have learned that a little bit earlier when I was in college, and I would have done that while in college, so I didn't have $80,000 of student loan debt. But nonetheless, I learned it, and I started doing that while I was in college, working third shift bagging ice in an ice factory. Come on. You kidding me? 2 o'clock in the morning, you're bagging 8-pound bags of ice? Give me a break. It's exhausting. It sucks. But you know what? I got paid. I was able to take the gas to really get back and forth from the job. I took a job stocking shelves at the Dollar Tree while I was working as a personal banker. I mean, come on, you have the status of a personal banker, opening up checking accounts, refinancing your mortgages, doing auto loans, selling you credit cards, doing all these things, and then you turn around and stock shelves. I did that before I came out here to Wichita, and then I was working 2 jobs. Why? Because we have medical bills, because I wanted to pay things, because I didn't want to fall behind, because I was scared of what was going to happen, and I had to do what it took to take care of my family. When the jobs are available, you snag them up. We should have really a 1 to 2% unemployment rate nationwide. But we don't. It's a lot higher. And the fact that Democrats and progressives are fighting the work requirements that are into the farm bill, and they say that they're not going to pass the farm bill. Well, guess what? Paul Ryan right now, and the Republicans are still in the majority, and they will pass the farm bill. And Paul Ryan says that he thinks that they can pass it, and he's very optimistic about it. They don't want to cut spending. They don't want to cut social programs in any way, shape, or form. They despise the fact that we cut or even talk about cutting any type of social program. When all we're saying is that if you're able-bodied and you're of that age, work 20 hours, work a part-time job, 20 hours a week. Volunteer part-time. What are you doing if you're of that age and if you're able-bodied to do so? If you're not, then obviously that narrows down a little bit on who's actually qualified for that, and then we can still take care of you. But that's a small minority, a fringe minority of the people that are actually on there that can't be working. We need to start looking at ways we can get people back to work rather than feeling the entitlement, rather than feeling that they deserve X, Y, and Z because that's the way that the family's gone for a while, or that's they've contributed for a little bit and they don't want to do so anymore, or maybe they don't take the responsibility to take care of their families. Whatever the situation is, we got to start looking at the realism here. We got to start looking at ways we can start refining, because once we start getting people off the social program, then we can downsize the program itself. And once we start downsizing the program itself, not only will we stop slowing the growth of these social programs, but maybe we can actually start decreasing the size of the social program. Maybe just a little bit. Just a little bit. And that's what we need to focus on. 316-721-8255. We're seeing the Farm Bill when it comes to the SNAP program with the work requirement. Now, again, as I mentioned, the Democrats not liking that one. But then on the other side, outside of the Farm Bill, President Trump said he wants to put the same thing on Medicaid. And many states giving the option to put work requirements on Medicaid, to where if you're going to qualify for it, unless you're elderly or disabled, then you need to work part-time. You need to work 20 hours a week in order to qualify for Medicaid. Putting people back to work. We should have a very, very low unemployment rate, because unemployment rates really only consist of people of the age range of what's able to work, 18 to 65. And if you're within that range and you're not disabled, then you should be working in some way, shape, or form. And most people, even that are disabled, find a way to still work while they are disabled. You're blind? All right. You know, it's I knew people who I've associated with in different communities who are blind and worked at a call center. Because they were blind, they could do it. They just put on the headphone and they could talk to people. Their ears still worked, and they were able to do things. They have the opportunity to do so. And not necessarily that they had to, but they wanted to. They found their projects they could do. They could do something at home and sell a product or make a product at home, whatever they ended up doing. But we can start working on things like that again. But we have this entitlement mentality, and every time we even think about slowing the growth, not even decrease it, but slowing the growth of a social program, then all hell breaks loose. And the Democrats panic. And it's the end of the world. And people don't like it. And you know what I have to say to it? We're about to hit the breaking point, and here's what I have to say to all you progressives that don't even like to slow the growth of social programs, food stamp and WIC and Medicare and Medicaid and all these social programs. You know what I have to say to you? I didn't quite hear you. Can you say that again, please? Oh, one more time. I'm sorry. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program today. I know, I'm kind of heartless, ain't I? How dare that we actually make you want to be self-dependent and actually be able to flourish and do as great as you can be because you have the opportunity to do so without the government. It's a terrible thing, I know. I should be shamed for that.
Winning.
316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. A few minutes left in the program. It's open lines to you if you do want to chime in. As I mentioned, tomorrow's going to be a fun show, as we will have at 8:30. We'll have Governor Jeff Collier on the program talking about the trade issue that we're having with China. In the 7 o'clock hour, we will have Dave Trauber on the show with us from the Kansas Policy Institute. He'll be joining us for the entire 7 a.m. hour. As yesterday, I got to partake, and I appreciate the invite to go to that, but I got to go see a senator from Oklahoma, Senator Cornyn, as he wrote the foreword for the book, What Was Really the Matter with the Kansas Tax Plan. We'll probably give another copy of that away tomorrow on the show as well. But he wrote the foreword for that, and we got to hear him speak. He was in town. He was talking a little bit about the issue here in Kansas comparatively to Oklahoma and some of the issues happening at the national level. And his big focus that he had last night when he was speaking was that we need to do the fix ourselves. Government's not going to fix it. Federal government's not going to fix it themselves. The state government's not going to fix it themselves. We need to do it ourselves. And there's many ways that we can do that, whether through the Article 5 convention, which is something we have to do. We can even, did you know that we can even do a convention here in Kansas to our state government? We can do a convention of states, or we can do a convention. We can do that to hold our state government accountable, which might actually come in handy when it comes to the Supreme Court that's been kind of bullying the legislature and legislating from the courts. When it comes to the progressives who, they got elected to run on a certain agenda, but at the same time, when they abuse their power and they don't do what they're intended to do in the state government, we can start holding them accountable. We can start holding the school districts accountable if we actually run for the seats. If we show up to the meetings, if we have enough people crying and screaming and yelling loud enough for them to hear us and they have to pay attention to us. If it's just a few, they don't pay attention. They just blow us off all to the nuts of the fringe and they don't really know what's going on. We're not the majority of who can actually fix something. We need to show up. I know that we ask a lot and there's always a call to action. And there's something I think has really harmed society. And in many ways, that's a call to action. All the time. Everybody always has to have a call to action to get people energized and get them engaged. The problem is that when you hear a call to action left and right every single day, day in and day out, eventually you become numb to it. Eventually you become numb to what the seriousness of the situation actually is because you're used to hearing it nonstop. Talk radio has done a terrible job for a really long time creating an issue and having the doomsday approach to a lot of things that necessarily don't need a doomsday approach to them. And we can't do that any longer. We have to encourage people that when we say it's serious, we need to actually make sure that it is really serious. We need to focus on that. 316-728-8255. Got about a minute and a half left of the program. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Nick.
Nick, what's happening, sir?
Well, hey, you just touched on a very important thing. You know, everybody talks about term limits, and I think we forget that the natural term limits for these politicians, as it were, is the fact that we get out there as citizens and be engaged and can vote them out of office. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's important that we consider that as part of the option instead of just having term limits. Say we need term limits.
Sure.
And then since you're short on time, I'll just say one other thing on the cannabis, hemp, N-word, whatever you want to talk about.
Sure.
Get over it. Have a good one, Andy.
Well
Take
done,
care.
Nick. I love it. I appreciate the call, my friend. There it is. Using my own stuff against me here. What is this? What is this? I appreciate the call there, Nick. No, you're right. We have a duty. Instead of just saying we want term limits, we actually have to term limit them out ourselves. And we have to do that. Now, we need the term limit argument in the legislation for non-elected officials and appointed positions. But you're right. And that really shows the difference to where we have people yelling for it, but at the same time, we have others that don't. And they're not saying that. And we're not hearing them because there are people that get elected over and 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 over.